finances. But I also know that if you're going to build a house, you got to spend your faith. If you're going to build your life, you got to spend your faith there. And there are times you've got to risk some stuff with your money in favor of something new happening in your life. You ever hear the expression, you got to have money to make money, or you got to spend money to make money? Yeah, so but my deal is, let's spend our faith and let's watch God work. Because what builds a house is faith. I know there are 17 different models of church growth. They all confuse me. Faith builds a house. Glory builds a house. It's really simple. God builds a house. Okay, so following that Tuesday night, that Sunday morning, Dr. Riggins Earl Jr., one of the prince of preachers in the African American community, interdenominational theological seminary in Atlanta, who's a dear friend that I've gotten to know over the last 2 years, but has become a precious friend, brilliant scholar, got up and read from John 21, "The dawn is breaking." And in the second service, he preached from Psalm 46, "God will help her when morning dawns." And I began to hear stuff even he wasn't saying, but I just heard God say, "The dawn is breaking." And I knew that was a word for the house. Well, fast forward a week later, Bishop Eddie Long is here. And Bishop Eddie Long begins to say, "No more delay. No more delay. The time is now." And then he said from Elijah and Elisha, the key is covenant commitment. "As the Lord your God lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." Okay? You listening? Okay. And on Tuesday nights, I'm teaching on the goodness of God and God answering prayer. And Eddie says, God's good. He's up to something good in the house. Just phrases, they just start coming out. The following Tuesday night, Joshua Mills is here from Vancouver, British Columbia. He gets up on the piano and he begins to sing, "The glory of God fills this place." And all of a sudden, out of his mouth comes, "No more delay, the time is now." No more delay, the time is now. So you get this impression that God's saying something. All right? Now, remember that Tuesday night after resurrection, I prophesied 52 days. And then all of a sudden, all this stuff starts happening. And all these confirming words coming, because we're talking about on Tuesday nights how good God is. Whatever you ask, whatever you wish. I did a whole thing on whatever you wish. The wishes are as powerful prayers as any other prayers. And that our problem is that we put a condition on the whatever you wish or whatever you ask. And Pharisees put conditions on it, but God the Father and Jesus never put conditions on those prayers. He said and then I read the story about the little girl with the woolen ball that wanted the ball for Christmas, and George Mueller prayed that God would give her the ball, and he already knew he received that she was going to get the ball, didn't know how, but he walked away in faith, and she got the ball in 24 hours for her birthday. Just powerful stuff, powerful stuff. And so then, from Joshua Mills, we fast forward, and now, Sunday morning, a week ago, Apostle Derek Brown in the first service says, "I want you to turn to John 21. I have a word for you. The dawn is breaking." All right? And we declared it. Mario, 3 weeks ago, said, "Bishop, what are we going to call spring conference this year? You always have a title." I said, "I don't know. Let's call it a time to ascend." Just came out of my mouth, a time to ascend. And sometimes we don't realize we're prophesying when we don't know we're prophesying. So Apostle Derek gets up and he says, "The dawn is breaking, the fast is over." And he begins to talk about the fact that working hard all night and catching nothing changes when Jesus shows up, because he attracts fish. And he said, it's time for the house to break the fast. A long period is ending. So in the second service, Apostle Derek Brown starts talking about Elijah and Elisha and the God of restoration. He picks up on where he leaves off. He starts talking about the God of restoration. And he talks about, "As the Lord your God lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." Covenant relationship, being joined, being connected, that there's a reward to that. He talks about Elisha as the new generation rising and a prophetic community that is going to be released in Orlando. Right? And then he goes on to say, "And it cost Elisha everything to give the woman the dream she wanted, because God knew the secret of her heart. He gave her a word. She was standing in the doorway she built for him, but he created a doorway with her words that within 9 months she was carrying a promise for the future. And didn't want to be lied to, and he said, "I'm not lying, this is going to happen." And then the baby comes to maturity, and at about 7 years old, the baby dies of a heat stroke. And Elisha lays his life down for the babe, for the child, and gives the child back to the mother in the place called Shunem, double resting place. I haven't got time to go into all that. I have to preach a sermon all over again. But the bottom line is, he said, and then there came the Syrian occupation of Shunem and other towns, and the woman was told by Elisha, a famine is coming, go away for 7 years, and then God's going to restore you and your son. And she walked away, the army came, took over all her property, and 7 years later to the day, Gehazi is standing in the presence of the king, telling the story about the little boy who was born by a word from Elisha, lost his life, and Elisha raised him from the dead. And while he's telling the story, the woman comes back from her wandering and comes into the king's court. And Gehazi saying, King, that's the lady. And the king immediately says, restore to her everything we've taken and pay her for the time we have used the property.